Coming up in this episode of In Clear Focus.
People are willing to spend, and I can see this in the social data. People are looking for products. So I think that presents a great opportunity for retailers and e-commerce companies to do a little research, understand what their consumers are looking for, and push those deals, test the different offers, and start getting them early on.
You're listening to In Clear Focus, fresh perspectives on the business of advertising, produced weekly by Bigeye. Hello, I'm your host, Adrian Tennant, VP of Insights at Bigeye, a full-service, audience-focused creative agency. We're based in Orlando, Florida, but serve clients across the United States and beyond. Thank you for joining us. The experience of shopping has been transformed for many of us over the past 18 months as e-commerce has boomed, innovation in retail tech has accelerated, and competition among online retailers has grown. We've seen online and offline shopping experiences merge, such as order online and pick up in store. One way of tracking the impact of these changes in consumer behavior is through social listening, enabled by tools that can track information about products, consumers, and purchase intent in real time. Marketers can use social listening platforms to understand consumer sentiment and improve their own presence on social networks. Our guest today is an expert in this area. A researcher and strategist, Cassenya Newton is the marketing content specialist at the digital consumer intelligence company Brandwatch. Cassenya likes to think of herself as part social analyst and part writer, deriving consumer insights from social data and turning those into helpful reports and data-driven stories. To talk about her work with Brandwatch and what she believes the future holds for retail and e-commerce, Cassenya is joining us today from Malaga, Spain. Cassenya, welcome to In Clear Focus.
Hi, Adrian. Thank you for having me.
Cassenya, you're in Malaga, Spain today, but your home base is New York City. What takes you to Malaga?
As a New Yorker, I really try to extend my summer holidays, maybe indulge in some paella, and finally try out this digital nomad lifestyle. But I've also wanted to see Malaga for a long time. The city has a rich history and beautiful architectural sites. But definitely paella and wine scored first in my decision-making process, so no shame.
You're leaving New York City for the first time in months. How does it feel to be traveling again?
It's expensive to travel again. Regulations change basically on a daily basis. So we are traveling, our next point would be Ibiza Island, which we're traveling to tomorrow. But we just found out that the local government of the island has imposed a new rule that's in effect from September 8th to September 15th. Everybody who's traveling from the mainland of Spain has to get a PCR test done. So every PCR test in Europe is over €100. So number one, traveling again is very expensive because you just end up spending a lot of money to do PCR tests no matter where you go, from one country to another, from one island to another. Other than that, a lot of people are traveling, and what's surprising that people actually follow social distancing. A lot of places here require vaccinations. People wear masks. So that's definitely nice. There's this a little bit of excitement up in the air of people just really enjoying. So I think while we don't have to talk about the downside of the pandemic, it was devastating, right? It still is. But at the same time, I feel like that gave people just maybe another breath of fresh air because they're enjoying their life again, right? Before we were able to do all these different things, but then once we were no longer able to do anything, and then we're back at traveling, people just really enjoy their glass of wine, they really enjoy their meal, they really enjoy a company of their friends. So I think that's been very interesting to watch, just laughter all around and personal connections, just having a conversation. Not a lot of people, and I know in New York, most of the time people walk around with their phone, just staring at their phone nonstop. In Europe, it's very different. And I don't know if it's always been different, but in Europe, people actually enjoy in-person conversation. Maybe it is an effect of COVID. So hopefully one positive trend that came out of the pandemic is the fact that we kind of just become a little bit more human again. Maybe that's the case.
Could you explain what Brandwatch is and what types of clients the company serves?
Absolutely. So Brandwatch is a digital consumer intelligence company. We're based in the UK. And while Brandwatch Consumer Research, our flagship platform, can process all kinds of data side by side, We are best known for our capabilities in making sense of the voices of billions of people through analyzing different sources like public social media posts, review sites, video sites, blog posts, and news articles. Currently, we have over 2,000 different clients from agencies to larger brands. Most of them are very well known. Yeah.
Now, you're a marketing content specialist with Brandwatch. What does your role entail?
You can think of me as a social researcher, I would say. So I gather and analyze social data shared publicly by consumers on various topics online, and I turn those insights into posts and reports to kind of help companies and brands better understand and adapt to changing consumer behavior. I think I would call this a social researcher because that's what I do.
Now, you recently wrote and presented a report for Brandwatch which explores how consumer behaviors have changed since COVID-19, and it looks at their impact on e-commerce for the remainder of this year and into 2022. Ksenia, briefly, could you explain how you obtain data for Brandwatch reports?
Yeah, absolutely. Brandwatch has access to the largest archive of consumer thought and opinion. We're currently talking about 1.2 trillion public mentions. Our sources include social networks and forums and news sites, review sites, video sites. And as you know, there's over 500 million new public posts that are being shared every day. And also Brandwatch is a Twitter official partner. So that allows us to access the full fire hose. And Brandwatch is the only actually provider who indexes and stores the entire Twitter data on our servers for instant access. So you can go back to all the way back to 2008, I believe, to kind of look at what was happening back then and then compare this data to the real-time mentions.
So it's kind of longitudinal data opportunities there as well.
Absolutely. But also, I love reading through data. So sometimes it's, once you start looking into this, you kind of fall into that loophole and you just stay there for hours trying to see, wow, I can't believe that actually took place back in 2008, right? And how different the world looks like these days. Yeah.
What are some of the most significant trends that you saw evolving during the pandemic and that you believe will prove to have longer term impacts?
I truly think that the pandemic of 2020 actually has changed the way we do many things, including how we shop. And it's driven this rapid digital adoption around shopping specifically. So a couple of trends that I can think of right away is one is the touch-free, right? We all wanted to have this contactless experience. We don't want to touch anything. I live in New York, so all of a sudden in New York, our subways changed from using the regular Metro card to actually just tapping our card and just paying for it and going through. So people are looking for this type of experience, and I think that is going to be a trend moving forward. Touch-free, whether it's an experience in store or online. The other thing that I can speak to is the virtual try-on trend. I think it's huge. Myself, I've purchased products by literally trying them on online. And whether it's clothing, accessories, there is also makeup that you can do now, 3D, or if you're trying to redesign your space, I think that's also huge. And the other ones, I would say it's probably social commerce and live streaming. Live streaming is becoming really big, especially in Asia, and it's definitely moving towards the rest of the world. But also the growing power of social marketing and ethical shopping. I think that's the other trend. I guess we've been stuck in the pandemic for so long. A lot of people reassess their behavior around shopping, and that also includes social influencers who not only promote certain products, but they also really embrace ethical shopping. So they try to send that message over. So people care a lot more these days about what the brands stand for, what they represent, how ethical they are, and so on and so forth. So I think this is going to be a big one as well.
Bigeye has recently conducted a survey of consumers across the US, and while the data is provisional, it appears that a majority of Gen Z and Gen Y consumers are purchasing based on seeing influencers use or recommend products. Now, during COVID, brands adapted to lockdowns and non-essential store closures by introducing live streaming. Did you see greater adoption of social commerce in your research?
Yeah, I'm actually working on a report right now. It's the report around COVID-19 and its impact on the consumer behavior moving forward. And something that I'm currently seeing in data is not only people shop after seeing something that's being promoted to them by influencers or somebody they follow, people also shop for a variety of other reasons like impulse buying as well as something to look forward to. So there are a lot of other motivations that I'm just uncovering right now. So I do think there is a greater adoption of social commerce. People are spending a lot. And actually, I think I read it in Statista. I think it might have been an hour extra that people spend online watching all the different entertainment shows and live stream as well. So definitely greater adoption. I think it's going to stay that way because we've been through the pandemic for so long that we've gotten used to this type of experience. Yeah, I think it's here to stay. I've actually never shopped through a live stream yet, so I'm lagging behind. Not an early adopter here.
What kind of impact has TikTok had?
Yeah, as you know, TikTok is one of the world's fastest growing entertainment platforms. I know that they're currently trying to invest heavily in social commerce. They just partnered up with Shopify. And I think it's going to be a great deal because the majority of users on TikTok are Gen Z. So I remember from last year, there was a couple of fashion brands that went viral with their little videos on TikTok. And I think TikTok is going to grow. First of all, I think they're planning on launching new features to compete with Instagram shopping and Facebook shopping. So there'll be a lot of that affiliate links, probably advertising, a lot of brand sponsored content as well. I know they're in the process of evolving, and I really think it's going to actually make a huge difference. And I'm very curious to see how it's going to play.
At Bigeye, we typically categorize social media influencers by the number of people following their accounts. So mega influencers have 1 million or more followers. Macro influencers are those with 100,000 up to 1 million followers. Micro influencers are those with 1,000 and up to 99,000 followers. And finally, nano influencers are those whose accounts typically have fewer than 1,000 followers. Now, in our preliminary research data, we see that in addition to purchasing products based on influencers, consumers are sharing those purchases with their social networks. Ksenia, are we approaching the point at which everyone with a social media account is potentially a nano influencer?
I think it's a good one. You can be an influencer too, right? I think it's very important. What makes nano influencers different from the rest is, first of all, our attention span is nowhere close to what it used to be, right? And you only care about those that sort of you either know or they could make a huge impact in your life. I think, so for example, I follow a girl from my gym, right? She has just slightly over 4,000 followers on her Instagram. But because I've seen her in person, she's not my friend, but I've seen her in person at the gym and then I found her account, I'm a lot more likely to actually pay attention to what she's advertising. So to your point, I do think that nano influencers are going to have a huge impact. And in fact, because their audience is so much more engaged than, say, you might have 100,000 followers, but if you look at Instagram, your photo might get maybe 100 likes. And that doesn't even mean anything because as we scroll through, we just click tap, 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 tap. So I think nano influencers are going to become a lot more important just because their audience is very concentrated, a lot more engaged. They actually still pay attention versus just scrolling aimlessly, mindlessly scrolling through. Yeah, so with my 1,517, I believe, on Instagram, if only I can figure out what the focus should be, I can be a nano influencer too.
Let's take a short break. We'll be right back after these messages.
I'm Seth Segura, VP and Creative Director at Bigeye. Every week, In Clear Focus addresses topics that impact our work as creative professionals. At Bigeye, we always put audiences first. For every engagement, we commit to really understanding our clients' prospects and customers. Through our own primary research, we capture valuable data about people's attitudes, behaviors, and motivations. These insights inform our strategy and guide our creative briefs. Clients see them brought to life in inspiring, imaginative, brand building, and persuasive activation campaigns. If you'd like to put Bigeye's audience-focused creative communications to work for your brand, please contact us. Email info@bigeyeagency.com. Bigeye, reaching the right people in the right place at the right time.
How do you identify?
Female,
male,
gender fluid,
cisgender, genderqueer,
non-binary,
transfeminine.
Society is constantly changing and evolving. To understand how Americans feel about gender identity and expression, Bigeye undertook a national study involving over 2,000 adult consumers. Over half of those aged 18 to 39 believe that traditional binary labels of male and female are outdated and instead see gender as a spectrum. Our exclusive report, Gender Beyond the Binary, reveals how beliefs across different generations influence the purchase of toys, clothes, and consumer packaged goods. To download the full report, go to bigeye.agency/gender.
Non-conforming.
Transgender.
Two-spirit.
Transmasculine.
Gender fluid.
Gender Beyond the Binary. Welcome back. I'm talking with Cassenya Newton, marketing content specialist at Brandwatch. In our survey, we asked respondents how likely it is that certain scenarios will happen within this decade. Cassenya, it probably won't surprise you to know that over one half of Gen Z respondents believe that by 2030, many retail stores will include studio space for customers to create their own videos and show product demonstrations as live streams. But do you think it could be the norm sooner than 2030?
I'm really not surprised. Just a few days ago, I was in Madrid and we went to a local store. I believe it was Bershka. And I saw a big LED ring light right there in the store that would allow you to take beautiful selfies and model their clothing. And I saw people definitely on the younger side, just trying on jeans jackets, spinning around, taking photos, maybe live streaming. I wanted to stand behind and watch what they were doing, but I couldn't. It's not very ethical. I don't think 2030 is the year. I think it's already here and it's now because it's happening. And I'm sure it's happening a lot more that I'm aware of. It's just I don't ever go and shop in stores. This is a very rare occasion. I'm more of an online person, but it's already here and I've seen people do this. So it's definitely here. We don't need 20 years. It's happening now.
A trend we're also seeing in our data is a greater interest in recycling and upcycling, again, especially among the younger generation. In our survey, approaching 1/3 of Generation Z reported buying from a store specializing in pre-owned or vintage clothing in the past 6 months, with almost 2 in every 5 saying they bought pre-owned clothes or accessories from a thrift store. Cassenya, what do you think lies behind this? Is it a rejection of fast fashion, or can fast fashion and thrifting coexist?
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, something that I recently read from a Deloitte study, and I saw that in my data as well, because I am working on this new report right now. While Gen Z and millennials were mostly concerned last year about their health and jobs, both generations remain deeply concerned about the environment still. So that's one thing. And also, I think the pandemic has prompted many consumers to reassess something that I mentioned earlier as well, to reassess their lifestyle and in particular their shopping behavior as well. And I realized just how much garbage I started producing, right? I was shopping for groceries online. I realized that while everything was delivered to me in perfectly packed boxes and plastic wrapped and everything was perfectly fine, right? And no damage done to the food. But at the same time, I realized just how much garbage it produces because I see this on a daily basis. So I think there is a new trend. People are reassessing how they shop. And I think fast fashion can coexist with secondhand shopping. But I also do think that a lot of people are reassessing, really looking into maybe when it comes to fashion specifically, maybe looking into better fabric, more ethically produced fabric and something that they can wear over a longer period of time or to reuse the existing items. I do think it's a new trend.
The increase in spending on e-commerce during COVID-19 has been well documented, with almost every category benefiting from the fact that many consumers like yourself were under stay-in-place orders. Last year, Walmart captured 25% of the US e-commerce grocery market, and eMarketer predicts that Walmart will continue to outsell its main rival, Amazon, at least in the grocery category. Cassenya, do you foresee e-commerce revenues in other categories remaining as strong if and or when people go back to shopping in real stores?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think consumers have gotten very used to the convenience of getting everything delivered. And going back to shopping may not be the same anymore because a lot of the time people, even if they go to shop in stores, they actually do this kind of a window shopping, right? They look at the product, they test it out, see how it feels, what it looks like, maybe how it smells, and then they go online and buy it cheaper. So I think it's a big problem actually for retailers. So I think e-commerce is going to grow big time. I don't think it's going to experience any slowdown whatsoever. And there are a couple of other trends, like I mentioned, the impulse buying. So it's also there. There are things that I'm seeing right now in my data, such as different types of motivations on why people are shopping online. And that's sometimes you shop for something for essential item, but sometimes you're just shopping because you want to have something to look forward to, or because you're impulse buying, or you need maybe a quick dopamine fix. That's something that I've been guilty of as well. So I think e-commerce revenues are going to grow for sure. So yeah, I look forward to seeing how that's going to affect actually in-store experience and retailers as well.
Well, you were in New York City during the lockdowns. From a personal perspective, how did your shopping behaviors change, if at all?
Yeah, I've always been shopping online for the most part. But something that I mentioned already, if you have to go into the office, if you have to leave your house, you don't necessarily see just how much garbage you produce. So the fact that I was home 24/7 and everything that I produced, I was able to actually see it. I realized just how much garbage I started producing. From my experience, I guess the fact was that I started really looking into becoming a little bit more sustainable. And that includes buying, reusable items like containers that I can just store food in, buying organically or ethically produced food, or not taking plastic bags and so on and so forth. That's my perspective. I think my shopping behavior has been definitely shaped by the fact that I started seeing all these different things that I create, and now I'm trying to adjust. And whether it's buying bottles, the reusable bottles for water, or not taking plastic, whatever it is, or maybe not even buying something from a retailer or from a brand that I don't think, if their mission doesn't really align with my mission or my views or values. So that's definitely been a trend in my personal life.
When we spoke a couple of weeks ago, you remarked that in New York City, you can order all of your essential items online and have them delivered, meaning that you never have to leave your apartment. What do you think retailers are going to need to do in order to entice shoppers like you, who've grown accustomed to convenience, back to physical stores for in-person shopping?
Yeah, isn't that $1 million question? I think it's a great question. I do think the way I could be enticed into going back into store, if maybe I was offered a special deal of some kind that's not available online, right? Maybe there's a limited production of a particular product that's only available in store at a particular location within a short period of time. That creates that sense of urgency, right? That sense of exclusivity that you have to be there to be one of those people who got that exclusive deal. Maybe it's creating this great in-store shopping experience, because online shopping is great, but it's not for everyone, right? A lot of the time, you kind of still want to have a feel of the product, the item that you're buying. So whether it's clothing, you might want to have a good setup that you can see yourself from all different angles, or whether it's food or furniture, whatever that is, maybe providing some additional services. I think retailers will have to work hard on actually getting their customer base back in real stores. But then again, I think it all depends on the generation. So I'm a millennial, I shop online, but not everybody shops online. So hopefully retailers can find their audience and maybe build upon that.
For a report Brandwatch published on customer loyalty, you collaborated with Global Web Index, a syndicated research provider, and full disclosure here, Bigeye is a client of GWI. What did that collaboration look like? How did you use the GWI data?
Yeah, sure. We approached them about the report we were working on. And actually, GWI was very open about collaborating and combining our data sets. So they provided the data we needed alongside the social data we collected using our platform, so we could compare and contrast. I think they worked out very well, because we were able to compare social data that we have as well as the survey data to represent everyone. That report is actually very successful. We've had a lot of great feedback.
In that study, what factors emerged as key drivers of customer loyalty, and what are some of the implications for retailers and brands?
So the three main factors that emerged in the study were price, or value for money, as well as quality and delivery. And it's something that really defines whether consumers are going to become loyal or whether they're going to detract from the brand. So especially, I think when it comes to delivery, again, we've gotten so used to the convenience of having the delivery in place that customers can turn away. Customers will praise you for giving them options, whether it's curbside pickup or delivery or any other type of option. But they will also go online and complain if you don't deliver according to their expectations. So the implications there would be, as we got stuck at home for so long, our expectations started growing in terms of what e-commerce and retail brands should be delivering. So I think the implication here is e-commerce and retail brands should really work hard on kind of addressing these three key areas, whether it's price, value for money, delivery, or quality of products, to kind of stay afloat and develop their loyal base, because loyalty is really hard to win, and consumers have become a lot more, and I know it's a cliche, digitally savvy. We've been digitally savvy for a very long time, but because we've been stuck at home for so long, a lot more people became aware where they can buy certain products, how they can buy them, which retailers offer a particular product at a lower price, and what retailer will give them a better deal or a better delivery, a convenient deal. So I think, again, brands and companies need to work really hard on addressing these three key areas to deliver on the expectations that consumers have.
Of course, it's that time of year when, as consumers, the holidays are starting to come into view. Ksenia, do you have any predictions you can share about what this year's holiday season shopping will look like?
Yeah, actually, great question. As you remember, last year, there were shortages everywhere, right? A lot of people didn't get their orders in time, not only in time, but it took months to get. Whether it's holiday or not, people were ordering furniture, mid-summer, and they just started getting their furniture maybe 7 months later. So what I started noticing in my data right now, as I'm working on this new report, is a lot of people are trying to kind of make sure that their orders delivered on time. So they're already looking for presence around for holidays. A lot of people are actually mentioning pre-order in their conversations. It's something that I think, so everybody's trying to get their presents on time to make sure they don't have any sticky situations. So I think that presents a really good opportunity for retailers, e-commerce brands to maybe start testing different offers online, whether it's trying to test different offer or different products, just kind of see what works, test it out right now. So then by the time the holiday season comes here, the right offer is in place and they can secure those sales. So the holiday shopping is not going to stop. The holiday shopping is here. I think last year, people held onto their disposable income, not knowing what's going to happen. But now that we've lived through this pandemic for this long, it's been 18 months, I think we've settled and people are willing to spend. And I can see this in the social data. People are looking for products. They're willing to spend, but they do a lot more research. So I think that presents a great opportunity, again, for retailers and e-commerce companies to do a little research, understand what their consumers are looking for, and push those deals, test the different offers, and start getting them early on. Yeah, but I think this holiday season is going to be big for e-commerce.
Ksenia, a significant part of your role is taking social and other types of data and creating stories around them that convey key insights from the data. Could you walk us through your typical process for ensuring that data stories get the points across most effectively for their intended audiences?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a really good example to that would be what I mentioned earlier about motivations. So for example, right now I'm looking into why consumers are doing impulse shopping. So not only when I go about my research process, not only I look for what's happening, I'm also looking into why it's happening. So there's a number of different motivations to why consumers are doing the impulse shopping. So when I personally read reports, as a reader, when I read reports, I'm always looking for that why. What's the why behind this? So what and what's the why? And I think that's the approach that I'm trying to follow with creating these reports. Not only identify what the trend is, but understand what's behind that trend to give just a little bit more information to our readers, what the behavior is like, what's causing that behavior, and maybe what they can do from there. So yeah, the typical day would be really looking into social data, trying to understand what the trend looks like, what are the conversations about, words are being used in describing certain trends, but also understanding who is saying what, because we are able to look at the different demographic data. We can actually split our data in terms of generations. So it's also very interesting to look at what millennials are saying and what Gen Z is saying and how they're viewing their experiences as well as everybody else. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's interesting the way you describe it, it's a mix of quantitative and qualitative research all bundled into one, which is unusual. I mean, we're used to doing mixed methods research where we might typically start off with a qualitative focus group to understand the issues and then design a quantitative survey based on those insights to validate at scale. But here you're dealing quite a lot with historic data, as you say, and what people are talking about online. How do you keep that quantitative and qualitative mindset in play?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have social panels as one of our features in Brandwatch Consumer Research. You can think of a focus group because you can create your own demographics. So you can actually set up the generation that you want to look at. You can put age. You can look for certain criteria. For example, what people say they do. For example, if you only want to look at people who are in a medical field. So for example, right now, as part of my research, I'm looking into the impact of COVID-19 on medical professionals and the healthcare field. And I'm specifically looking for conversations where people either say in their bio on Twitter, for example, I'm a doctor, I'm a healthcare professional, or they say this in conversations that I used to be a doctor and so on and so forth. So in a way, you can do this and you don't even have to get anyone involved because that conversation is already available. Those insights are already available online. You just have to use the right criteria, the right filters to set this up, and voila, you have all the data available in real time. I would say this is a good combination. You can look at the data using just Brandwatch Consumer Research, look at the numbers behind, look at the mention volume, look at the number of how many mentions of X, Y, and Z word happened in maybe earlier this year. But then you can also look at a specific population, whether it's medical professionals or students or people who said they prefer to impulse buy, and just create the overall understanding about that particular group or that particular population. So I think that's a good combination. I really like using social panels, especially when I have to look at a very specific subset of the population, trying to understand how they feel about a particular aspect or area or product or service.
Great. Cassenya, if In Clear Focus listeners would like to learn more about you, where can they find you?
Absolutely. You're welcome to find me on LinkedIn, Ksenia Newton. I think I'm the only one. There might be another person, but I should be at the top of the search. You can also follow me on Twitter, even though I'm not as active. You'd be surprised, but I usually listen. I rarely comment, but I'm on Twitter all day long just to listen, read the conversation, understand, and follow, but I never really tweet. But yeah, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter, or you can also shoot me an email if you have a specific question. I'm happy to respond, and it's knewton@brandwatch.com.
And if people are interested in learning more about Brandwatch, where should they go?
Yeah, you guys are welcome to visit our website at www.brandwatch.com. Feel free to check out our blog. We have a lot of interesting insights, and we just published our emoji report, which is phenomenal. So it's brandwatch.com/blog. Or also we have a whole resource section that's free. You don't need to subscribe. Just visit our website. You can read all sorts of reports, trends, blog posts, and really have that understanding.
Cassenya, thank you very much for being our guest this week on In Clear Focus.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up next time on In Clear Focus.
I go wherever people ask for any kind of change. So I'm loving the process of enabling people to love change and not be frightened about it.
That's an interview with Chantel Schmeltz, creative facilitator and an expert in using the Lego Serious Play method. That's next week on In Clear Focus. Thanks to my guest this week, Cassenya Newton, marketing content specialist at Brandwatch. You'll find a transcript with links to the resources we discussed today on the In Clear Focus page at bigeyeagency.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider following us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening to In Clear Focus, produced by Bigeye. I've been your host, Adrian Tennant. Until next week, goodbye.